Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Visual Studio Toolbox. I'm your host, Leslie Richardson, and I am joined by Georgie, who's going to be telling us everything there is to know about the EFCore.Visualizer extension, which is really exciting. We love extensions on this show. So, hi, Georgie.
I
Cool. So, before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on?
Yes, yeah, I'm a .NET developer for my whole career, almost 17 years already. Um, and I work quite often with Entity Framework Core and different databases. When I started my career, there were no major ORMs out there, so I started writing plain SQL queries on my own. So I'm quite familiar with the databases and the database ecosystem. So for the last couple of years, I have been working with Sensitive Framework. So I decided to build an extension for Visual Studio, which allows you to view query plan during the debugging session. It helps you view the generated query by Entity Framework and also the plan of the query. The main reason that I built this extension was that I noticed that it is kind of very easy to write underperforming queries in Entity Framework because developers who don't have experience writing the SQL queries themselves often write the queries in a wrong way. So I decided to build this extension, which will show both the query and the query plan, and I hope it will help developers to tune the performance of their queries and make their applications faster, which everyone loves.
Cool. So, what are some typical elements of a query plan that do help enable developers to be able to essentially make the performance of their queries better?
So the usual mistakes are like not adding the required indexes to the database or writing the query that brings too many columns that you don't actually need, which means increased network traffic for no reason. And sometimes I have seen queries where the developers structure their filter process in a way that does not allow the database to use existing indexes. We will see the examples and we will talk how we can rewrite those queries to make them more performant.
Cool, makes sense. And I'm curious, before this extension came out, what did you usually have to do in order to observe that additional information via the query plan and stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. So without this extension, you have to enable logging in Entity Framework Core. So it's not complicated, but it's an additional step that you have to make. So you can enable logging in Entity Framework, and it can output queries in the output window of Visual Studio. So you are still inside Visual Studio, and you can view the queries in output window, but you would have to, copy the query from the output window to some other database tool like SQL Server Management Studio if you use Microsoft SQL Server or some other database editor for other databases. You would need to run the query there and inspect the plan in that tool. And so you would be basically switching between two different applications. I decided to make it easier. This extension does everything for you. It will fetch the plan in the background and turn into a nice graphical view of the plan, and you can see it in Visual Studio directly without leaving your favorite IDE.
I'd imagine that would get really tedious if you're really just trying to break down what's happening with your query and then having to swap windows and make sure all the right settings are turned on. So I'm excited to see your extension in action then.
Yeah, before we start, I would also like to mention that this extension supports all the major databases. It works with Microsoft SQL Server, Postgres, SQLite, MySQL, and Oracle. Whatever database you use, you can use this extension to use a query plan inside Visual Studio. You don't have to jump between different windows. And it's also open source. If you are interested to learn how it works, you can check out. It's on my GitHub. There is a link on the marketplace as well. That's it. I think we can now jump to Visual Studio and see how it works in action. Yeah, so installation is pretty forward, just like any other extensions. There is no configuration needed. You just install the extension and you can get started. I have a simple application here with a simple model, just three tables, usual suspects, blogs, posts, and comments. So we have some fields in the database for this model. So we have a blog with it has posts and post has comments. So I have two versions of this database context, one for Microsoft SQL Server and one for Postgres, and we can see both in action. One important thing to remember is that the variable that you are trying to visualize has to be an iQueryable. It's now var here, but I can so it won't work if you do toolist here because with toolist it's already converted to the class objects in memory, so you can't you query in that case. It has to be an iQueryable if you want to use the query plan.
Gotcha.
So I will put a breakpoint here, start the project. When the breakpoint hits, here is this simple query that gets the blog URL for every blog and post count. And if I hover my cursor over the variable, we will see the usual tooltip that Visual Studio shows. Inside the view button, we can see that there are two options. One is the enumerable visualizer, which comes with Visual Studio by default and shows data since it's an enumerable. And we can also see the query plan visualizer, which comes from my extension. And when I click it, it will fetch the query plan and get this nicely formatted HTML plan in graphical format.
That's pretty sweet. Also, I love that you specifically extended the visualizer functionality in VS because it's such a it's such an underrated feature in my opinion in the debugging space. So
Yes, it's underrated but powerful.
absolutely.
Uh, yeah,
Cool.
I want to mention that this HTML comes from another open source library. I used the existing library to show the plan as HTML. We can see that here at the top is the query, which has some syntax highlighting too. And below it, we have the graphical view of the query. We can zoom in to make it easier to read. So it shows all the phases that our query went through in the database engine. In this case, the non-clustered index, which is on the foreign key between posts and blogs, took the most parts, and we can see all these steps that the query went through during execution. Yeah, we can also see some more examples. This is just a simple query. I wanted to highlight this query because it's an easy way to write a query in a wrong way. So this query will pull all the posts that were written in 2024. And for a C# developer, it's very natural to write this condition in this way. You just do so it pulls all the comments from 2024. So it's very intuitive to to write comments dot posted dot year equals 2024, you simply translate what you want to filter in the link condition. So if we inspect the plan once again, we will see that the query here, the where clause, it calculates the year using the date part SQL Server function, and this means that even if there is an index on the posted at column, the database engine won't be able to use that index because the index is on the posted at column, and here we are doing some calculation on the column. So
Mm.
database is unable to use an existing index. Here below the second query is the proper way of writing the same query. Instead of calculating the year like we are doing here, instead of fetching the year part from the datetime object, we are just fetching all comments that are between 2024 1st January and less than 1st January of 2025. So if we use the plan for this query, we will see that the date part function has disappeared, and instead it's doing comparison between these two dates that we specified, the from date and the to date. So in this case, if we put the index on the posted at column, the database engine will use it if it makes sense to use the index. So this is one of the most common mistakes that I have seen with entity framework, and uh, it can really kill the performance even if you put the index on the column.
So that's cool. So you kinda got to see a little bit behind the hood, like, in
Yeah,
terms of the framework code that's actually being used when you do certain operations and things too in the visualizer.
right. The extension can also change its appearance based on the theme of Visual Studio. So if I switch to dark mode now, and if I instruct the query plan, we can see that it has more or less the
It's like it's
of
so
the
close. It's just
of the
like everything looks good minus the red text, but yeah.
yeah. I think it looks better for me on the on here.
Mm. Yeah, I
So
do like it for the graph in particular. I think it makes the arrow paths a bit more defined, so
yeah. So yeah, you can switch between different themes, and it will change the color for the extension as well. We can also view Postgres version. Like I said, it supports all major databases. Unless you have any question before we switch to Postgres.
not too many. I thought that looked pretty good. Again, just getting to see what's really happening at runtime with the query that you're choosing to go with is really informative, and especially because now you can see it all in VS is
Yeah.
just making debugging a lot less headache inducing.
So the Postgres version is the same tables. So we have the same queries here. The visual part is different for Postgres because I use another open source library for this to sensitive to this code. So we can see that it did an index scan here and some other operations to execute these queries. We can see the row plane returned from Postgres on the row tab, and we also have the query here and some extra statistics on the last tab.
Cool. So this view is specific to Postgres, you said?
Yes. So yeah, just like SQL Server, for Postgres, I also used an existing library that can turn the query plan to HTML. So this is all of this visual section that you see here. It is all coming from this library. So yeah, thanks to the library for this cool layout here.
Mhm.
You can see more complex queries as well. Yeah, it's pretty simple one. And this one it also supports this one supports dark theme too. So it doesn't. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. The MySQL version does.
Gotcha.
Um,
Postgres is its own thing.
uh, yeah. One more thing that I wanted to show for SQL Server is so if we have a query here which gets all the comments by a specific author. And when we view the query plan, it tells us about a missing index here.
Nice.
So yes, this is the feature from SQL Server engine. It will include the missing indexes in the query plan outputs, which the database engine thinks it's a good idea to create this index. So yeah, you can get some ideas or suggestions from the database engine. You should not go and blindly create all the indexes from these suggestions, but it's definitely a good idea to check the suggested index and create if it's necessary.
Cool. So is that info that you can also get via like the output window, or is this like
No,
additional bonus info?
this the query plan and the missing indexes. This is all coming from SQL Server engine, the database engine itself. In the outputs window, you could see the query, or you could see only the query.
Gotcha.
So you will not see this in output window, but you would see this if you did the same in SQL Server Management Studio. If you run explain there, you will see the same missing index suggestion.
Nice. Well, that was great. Anything else before we wrap up?
But I can also show my SQL version. uh, so for MySQL, I have some queries from the sample database that distributed with MySQL itself. This is a sample film database.
Mhm.
So we have a query here which fetches all films where there is at least one actor, Tom Hanks. So we use the plan. This is
Ooh,
what you see here. Yeah, for MySQL, there was no existing library, so I had to implement all this graphical part myself.
looks good. This one might be my favorite. I don't know. I like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I like the layout of it. It's pretty straightforward. It's
yeah,
probably my favorite of the
yeah,
visual.
yeah. The three rendered by existing tree library, but the information is pulled from the curriculum. The graphical part is not my strongest skill, but the Copilot helped me a lot. So
Copilot's the rescue. I mean, it looks good to me. So,
yeah,
what's the information that you get when you hover over each cell?
yeah, it shows the estimated cost
Mhm.
and the detail of the operation. For example, here the filter was that first name equals to Tom. It depends on the type of node that you have. In case of join, you get information what type of join it was. In case of table, if there is an index used here, we can see that the index lookup was done on this specific index for this condition that last time equals hanks,
Mhm.
and the green indicates that an index was used to scan the data of this table.
Great. Very informative. But yeah, it's cool seeing the different visuals depending on which database type that you choose to go with.
Yeah, the visuals are different, yes.
Great. So what's next for your extension?
Well, one limitation is that currently you can't use the plan if you write a query, for example, which is doing first, max, count, or queries that don't have an I queryable and just give you the data because count, single, and first, and methods like that, they only give you one value. There's no iQueryable, so you can't use a query plan of such queries. Maybe I will figure out a way how to implement that support for those queries. But some people have requested support for Visual Studio Code as well, but I think that's a lot of work to port it for Visual Studio Code, so I can't promise it for now.
Fair enough. Sweet. So, this was all really great. I like once again that all of this information is now in a centralized place. And as a visual person, it's great to also be seeing like the graphical representations of what's happening behind your query in order to debug them easier. As you said, all of this is open source, so people who want to add their own ideas can. It sounds like.
Yeah, query plans are like you may not need them for majority of your queries, but if you need it, you need it very much, I would say, because one slow query can kill performance of your product. So
Whole thing.
if you need it, then you are kind of desperate to use the plan and figure out why it's slow.
Cool. Well, Georgie, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about the extension, the EFCore.Visualizer extension. So, to people in the audience, we're going to put the link below to the marketplace listing. So go check it out. And if you have your own ideas, go check out the corresponding repository and help contribute. So, thanks again.